Welcome back to Jackass Politics, where we sift through the week's political dumpster fire so you don't have to. I'm Adam.
And I'm Ian. Let's dive into this week's headlines because if there's one thing our leaders never do, it's take a break from being completely ridiculous.
First up, President Trump has decided to fire the entire Kennedy Center board and appointed himself chairman. Because when you're done wrecking democracy, why not move on to the arts? I guess Hamilton needed more monologues about crowd sizes.
Right? It's like he walked into the Kennedy Center and thought, this needs less Shakespeare and more sycophants. Next thing you know, we're getting Trump, the opera, where every song is about how unfairly he's been treated.
Meanwhile, Anthony Weiner is attempting a political comeback by running for New York City Council because nothing says trust me like a history of sexting scandals. I guess he's banking on voters having a really short memory or maybe just a forgiving nature.
It's like the plot of a really bad sitcom. Disgraced politician seeks redemption in the big city. Tune in next week to see if he can keep his phone in his pocket.
Phone, right? In other news, Trump just slapped 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports because clearly what America really needed was higher prices on cars, beer cans, and infrastructure projects.
Right. It's like his whole economic plan is just what if everything costs more and our allies hated us? Brilliant stuff. Truly brilliant.
But hey, enough about the latest policy disasters. Let's check out some of the week's top political tweets. Brace yourself. It's a wild ride. From A Money Resist, Elon Musk did not shut down USAID because it was a ball of worms with no apple. He shut it down because USAID was investigating Starlink for shutting off satellites in Ukraine to assist Russia in its war. Everything Musk does is to serve one person, and that's himself. So yes, we have a billionaire who swears he's to help and somehow always just ends up helping himself. If Elon ran a food bank, I guarantee you he'd find a way to charge people for water.
Of course, Musk's idea of efficiency seems to be dismantling anything that doesn't personally benefit him. You know, like regulations, oversight, and apparently foreign aid.
You know, this is a pretty disheartening subject. I mean, we're losing out on all kinds of soft power here. And I did just read right before we got on that China is actually going ahead and filling in where we're pulling out of some of these projects. So soft power is the kind of influence we can have in a region by going in and win over hearts and minds.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like every week we're gonna have something to say, some conversations about what Musk is doing, and we've said it before. You know, he's committing a constitutional crisis, like we had earlier today. You know, he's just ignoring court orders. The whole Doe committee is ignoring court orders. I wish I could be a little more humorous with this one, but it's really starting to feel worse than bad. Actually, constitutionally dangerous.
Yeah, but J.D. Vance alluded to this actually as far back as 2021, where he said, you know, he quoted Andrew Jackson when they SCOTUS came in and said that he wasn't allowed to do something, and Andrew Jackson said something to the effect of, well, come let them enforce it.
Yeah.
And that's their whole goal here is, and it's kind of the dirty secret in politics that nobody wants to talk about. Most of our government just runs off of trust, right? Yeah. Like we swear an allegiance, like when I got sworn in, even at my level, I swore an allegiance to the Constitution, right? And that's where we're supposed to be at and how everybody's mind frame is supposed to be. Once somebody doesn't have that mindset at the highest reaches of government, and you have your, you know, lackeys that are willing to do your bidding at every level, trouble is coming. You know, it's not a good sign. You had the American Bar Association even coming out with a statement today. That's not a good sign.
No, I mean it's really bad. And like you said, it's like money. It only has as much value as you give it. And these constitutional checks and balances only have as much only have as much value insofar as the people are willing to enforce them. And Elon Musk he's betting that people won't.
And it's, it's not just him. It's Trump and JD Vance. I mean, JD Vance over the weekend put out, tweets saying as much as that, this judge tried to put a stop on him and, oh, it's an unelected judge. I mean, but when an unelected judge does what they want to, I mean, every SCOTUS is unelected, but when they do something that they like, they don't bitch about that, right?
I don't
mean,
remember
that's what the hell the system's about. Marbury versus Madison, right? They have the right to interpret that.
Correct.
Now, you cannot like that. If you don't like it, have Congress change it. But right now, Marbury versus Madison is what it is.
It is precedent.
And they have the right to enforce it. If you don't like what this judge did, appeal the damn ruling.
Yeah.
That's the system.
Yeah.
Don't just ignore it.
Yep.
Fight your battle, prove your case.
Yep.
But they know they don't have a case here. And so
other than I want this.
I mean, all of these agencies that they're doing it for, I mean, the Department of Ed, they said, is closed on Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole goal here is, I'm not sure if we also have, I think we're going to talk about it maybe later. But there was one of the Treasury guys came in and said that the CFPB ended up having a very large balance. Yeah. And that he doesn't need that money and to send it back out or do other stuff with it. So what they're doing is they're cutting all these budgets and they're getting rid of everybody. And then next year, when Congress goes to do appropriations, they can say, hey, you know what? We don't have to appropriate money anymore to this organization. And now these organizations are gone. The Department of Education, the CFPB, which is the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's how they're going to get rid of these agencies and then call it a day.
Yeah.
It's scary, man. You want to, let's go to the next one.
All right. New. The government is being strangled. Sources tell me PEPFAR programs are faltering. Head Start says 63 grant recipients are having issues with funds. Refugee aid programs in the US say they can't get money. NIH applicants have grants in limbo. Climate and infrastructure grants are frozen. Nothing says global leadership like gutting USAID and letting China step in to fill the void. We used to export democracy. Now we're just exporting missed opportunities.
Right. We're cutting USAID so China gets to swoop in and, like a used car salesman at an estate auction, picking up influence on the cheap while we sit in the corner reminiscing about the good old days. It's just like we were talking about just a minute ago, the soft power being given up is tremendous. It's unfortunate. And we're going to end up paying a long price for this one, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, we've mentioned it obviously in this segment, but we're tanking our own economy. We're tanking foreign policy. We're tanking domestic policy. I mean, at what point are we getting great again? At what point is America getting any better? I mean, it's just at every turn, it's how do we fuck everything up?
But that's the ultimate goal here. I mean, it's like literally if somebody gave me a blueprint on everything somebody should do at the highest level of government to make it completely ineffective and to kill everything and to diminish our world power, I don't know if I would have done anything different so far.
I'm not sure there's a better start than this.
That's unfortunate to joke about, but that's these shows these days, man. That's where the fuck we're at.
We got to laugh some, I guess.
You got to, if you can't laugh, I'd be crying, man.
Yeah.
All right. So this from Washington Post, breaking news. The Trump administration cuts billions in biomedical funding. Researchers say it imperils work on cancer and other illnesses. Well, that's one way to guarantee you'll never have to deal with term limits. Just make sure fewer people live long enough to vote, right?
I mean, it's like defunding the fire department while your house is on fire because you don't like their attitude. This is another one that, man, it's just fucking, it's bad. And this won't be the first time that we see something like this, maybe in a different way. But it would seem that RFK Jr. is going to get confirmed. I don't really know that there's any way around that at this point. He's mentioned pauses on vaccine research, and it's just they're stripping down, our medical advancements, and this is going to have decades long impacts. This is not something that you just turn the switch back on if we get into power in 2 and 4 years and everything is just right back to normal and chugging along. This puts us way, way, way far behind.
I mean, not only that, it's really bad economic policy too,
For sure.
because it's like every dollar that we invest in this type of level of research ends up paying like $2 or $3 out. I mean, if you could go to the casino and every time you played $1, you got $2 or $3 back, why would you not just go and bang that until it stopped giving money back, right? I mean, that's what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
We need to be growing our GDP, because that's how we deal with the deficit, right? Yeah. Like, you grow your economy so that it's such a small portion of your GDP, and you start paying it off. Yeah. That's the whole goal. I mean, I am all for, if that Republicans wanted to have a true conversation about where do we need to cut spending. I mean, of course, there are plenty of places, right? Yes. Like, everybody is fine with paying less taxes.
Yep.
Nobody likes charging higher taxes, but at the end of the day, I mean, we have budgets that we do need to go off of, and we need to have those tough conversations. We got to have those tough conversations.
Yep.
But don't do this the way that they're doing it, right? Yeah. And I don't even know if this is really tied to the Kennedy portion that you're talking about. This seems more like Elon Musk may have just not known what the fuck they're doing. I think there was an interaction.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I think this was just a byproduct of slash and burn. But I think it will become very much more intentional when RFK is confirmed.
Sure, that may be, but because there was even an interaction that I saw this weekend on Twitter. I think it was Molly Jean Faster or whatever her name is. She posted about how the Elon was cutting this NIH funding, and he responded back, "No, I'm not. You don't know what the hell you're talking about." And then she posted actually where I got this Washington Post article from, saying that it's doing just that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even know what the hell they're doing.
Nope.
But do they care? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Probably not.
All right, next one. This is from Brian Tyler Cohen. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau literally exists to protect consumers from predatory financial institutions. It's returned over $21 billion to 205 million customers so far. The sole result of this movement is that Americans will have no recourse when they get screwed over by a bank. Good work, Elon. Elon Musk having access to confidential financial oversight data is like letting a fox guard the hen house, except this fox also owns the chicken feed, the fence, and the land that it's on.
Before the CFPB, the consumer protection was spread across 7 different agencies. And if you have everyone being responsible, then no one is responsible. It was like having 7 babysitters, but somehow you still lose the kid. Dodd-Frank came along and created the CFPB to fix that shit, and now Elon's out here trying to break it again, because nothing says efficiency like making it impossible to get your money back when your bank screws you over. Man, it's
rolling back consumer protections is bad. I think we know this, and there's a lot of things. There's a lot of predatory lending practices with banks. There's a lot of predatory behaviors that banks have. We all know what Wells Fargo has been guilty of in the past. And I mean, we know Trump loves deregulation. He loves to deregulate any industry out there at all. And in the end, it will be the American consumer that gets hurt. It's not an if. There's no question here. We have seen this. We know what happens when there's no oversight and nobody's doing anything at all. I mean, it's just
it's insane the measures that we're going to be seeing. 2008 a majority of this country is old enough to remember 2008.
Yeah,
and how horrible it was, and a lot of these protections that were put in. Primarily, like I said, So Dodd-Frank came about after the 2008 crisis. It was meant to fix a lot of it.
Yep.
One of the first things Trump did in his first time in office was immediately cut some of the banking regulations that they put in. He wants to be able to have it where all these big businesses in Wall Street are able to just do whatever the hell they want.
Right.
And it's at our expense, unfortunately. And there's going to be another financial crisis. There are still, I would love to see this actually beefed up, because there's still all types of what we call regulatory capture going on. Definitely some of these industries are getting way too large and need to be broken up. But we need, against these banks, we need to have somebody in our corner that's fighting for us. And the stats say it for themselves. $21 billion they collected. Go look at the last week, and hopefully Ian maybe can put some of the text here for us. Just look at in the last week what the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau actually was in the process of doing, who they were taking to court, and why. This is a regulatory agency that you do want. They fight for you.
Yeah. These are fights directly for the American consumer that has been wronged in some way, because most people don't have any other way of doing this. That they don't have the time, they don't have the funds, they don't have the resources or anything. This is a solely designed to fight for the American consumer when they've been wronged. And we know what he wants. He wants deregulation because he does not care about the American consumer. He cares about, billionaires, his big business out there, corporations, all that. We've seen it in his actions. Somehow he convinced voters that was not the case. And here we are again, a retread of the same fucking playbook.
All right. Let's go on to the next one. Newswire. House Republicans eye $4.27 trillion tax cut in spending package. That was from Punchbowl. Because when in doubt, just cut our taxes for the rich and tell everyone else to tighten their belts. Because pretty sure that's the same economic strategy that ended up tanking Rome.
Yeah. Trickle-down economics, where billionaires eat the whole cake, leave you the crumbs, and then demand that you thank them for whatever that meal was.
No, I don't know how many times else that we can talk about that trickle-down economics has never fucking worked.
No.
It came about by a farmer that was feeding oats, or trying to figure out if he could feed enough oats and different types of product to his horses that when they shit, that the chickens could just go and eat it. And he didn't have to do, the work of feeding the chickens too. Yeah. And that's literally what they're trying to do, is shove this shit down our throats. And it just doesn't work. No. Empowering us and making sure that our wages are high and that we have protections and that we feel comfortable spending money. That's how you get the cash flow, the flow, right?
Correct.
Like, you want it to go from the bottom up, because a rising tide lifts all ships.
Yep.
And that's what we want. We want to see the people at the lowest rungs of the economy go and look. There's a slide that you can go and see if you go and look at it. But when we got the stimulus checks, go and look at who immediately went and spent that money and what level of the economy they are. The people in the bottom, I think 10% went and immediately spent that whole check. Mm-hmm. Whereas people that were in my, group and your group, they ended up staying and putting that money in banks and just letting it sit for a while. Right.
Yeah.
You want money to be flying through the economy, right? That is a sign of a good economy, that you have people in the lower rungs are able to give money to the higher, and everybody grows richer because of it.
Yeah.
But instead, you get greed, right? And that's what we see here.
Trickle-down economics is basically a Rube Goldberg device for trying to create economic growth. You have made what should be a very simple idea, give money to the people, and added a whole bunch of extra steps for it to trim off all the way down before it gets to the bottom. Okay, as a business owner, as somebody who hires people, is responsible for P&L statements and all that, if you give me a tax cut right now, I'm not hiring more workers. My demand is stagnant right now. So I'm not hiring more workers, okay? I may give some of my good employees raises. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a pretty normal response. But that is just, a one-time sort of solution for a select few that I can afford to do that with. Now, you take that money, bypass me, give it to consumers, purchases increase, my demand goes up, I've got to hire more people, which also generates higher wages across the board. That's how you do it. Don't give it to me. Give it to the consumer who is going to consume, who is going to spend, and like you said, Adam, who's going to get money flowing throughout the economy, and then that eventually will lead to where we need to create more jobs to keep up with demand. It's really fucking simple, and we've made it complicated.
Yeah. And obviously on top of that, that goes in with a lot of the talk of the other policies that we need to see place, that we need to be the party of abundance.
Yep.
Because if your demand goes up and then you don't have those goods and we don't make it easier for you to get those goods, then you have inflation happen. So
Yep.
that's a little bottom line for some economics for you tonight.
Yep. All right. Well, those were some of the best takes from the week, but we can't stop there.
Nope. Because while Twitter was busy roasting the news, we found someone who really earned themselves a special spot this week.
That's right. It's time for the Jackass of the Week. And trust me, this one is another no-brainer.
Yeah, this week it was almost too easy. We're going to give it to Elon Musk and his band of government misfits, also known as DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, or as we prefer to call them, the Muskrats.
Yeah, because what happens when you put a tech billionaire with a god complex in charge of fixing the government? You get a bunch of Reddit fanboys running federal programs like it's a meme stock, and shocker, it turns out that's a terrible fucking idea.
All right, so let's start with the fact that the federal judge had to step in this week to block DOGE from accessing U.S. Treasury payment systems. Why? Because I swear to God this is real, that there were concerns that Musk and his team might expose sensitive data, or worse, use it in ways that no one had oversight on.
This is the equivalent of hiring your weird cousin who collects crypto to manage the family business, only to find out he's been day trading your fucking retirement fund.
And of course, handled a legal pushback with it. Elon just handled it with his usual grace and humility, which means he immediately ran to X, or as I will always call it, Twitter, about how corrupt federal judges should be impeached for stopping him for doing whatever the hell he wants.
Right, because nothing says efficiency like throwing a fucking tantrum the second someone tells you no. All right, the transparency scam. Now, Doge was supposed to be a model of government transparency, right? Musk claimed he was going to cut through the red tape and eliminate waste. But what has actually happened?
Well, they've been operating behind closed doors with no real oversight, hiring a bunch of guys who have had about as much experience in federal governments as your average TikTok influencer.
And yet, Musk keeps talking about how he's bringing efficiency to the government. If this is what efficiency looks like, I'd rather wait in line at the DMV for 3 hours.
So speaking of Doge's team, let's talk about the absolute joke of a hiring process happening over there.
Oh, you mean where a bunch of 20-somethings who spent too much time on Twitter are suddenly in charge of major federal initiatives? Yeah, that's going great.
Well, one of the more interesting hires was Edward Cortazine, who turned out to have direct ties to a company linked to Russian domains. So yeah, we're just handing out government jobs to people with questionable international connections now. Just no big deal.
And if that wasn't enough, the real star of the week was Marco Alez, a 25-year-old Doge staffer who was forced to resign after people dug up his old, incredibly racist online posts, including normalize Indian hate and I was racist before it was cool. Just outstanding leadership from the Muskrats.
Ian, you would think that would be the end of it, right? Mm-hmm. Someone gets caught being wildly racist, then they get fired and we move on. Nope. Elon decided it was a great time to make everything worse.
Because instead of just letting the guy go quietly, Musk did a fucking Twitter poll asking if he should be rehired. And shocker, his army of fanboys said yes. So Elez got his job back. Just imagine an employer firing you, then letting the internet vote on whether or not you should be reinstated.
What's next, Ian? Hiring decisions based on magic 8 balls, replacing the Supreme Court with a Twitch chat poll.
And before we move on this one, can we just acknowledge that J.D. Vance stuck up for the man who said normalize Indian hate? I just want to make sure yeah, okay. All right. Now,
Yep.
Of course, Musk and his buddies like J.D. Vance are out here saying we can't let stupid social media activity ruin someone's life. Again, going back, normalize Indian hate. J.D. Vance, did anybody, okay. Which is wildly ironic coming from the guy who bans Twitter users for mildly criticizing him.
Yeah, I'm sure all the people who got fired for tweets criticizing their bosses are thrilled to hear that the free speech protection only applies if you're in Musk's inner circle.
But let's be clear, this isn't about free speech. This is about a double standard. If you're a racist edgelord, Musk will defend your right to be controversial. But if you're a journalist reporting on his failures, you're banned in an instant.
Let's not forget the bigger picture here. Doge is not just some random experiment. This is a real government authority being handed over to a guy whose main experience is running a failing social media company and sending cars into space for fun.
And this week, the U.S. Treasury officially restricted Doge's access to federal payment systems, limiting them to read-only mode after realizing, hey, maybe we shouldn't let billionaires play with government money unsupervised.
And thank God for that, because Musk's track record on fiscal responsibility is stellar. Just ask the investors who lost their shirts betting on Tesla's stock swings.
So, to sum it up, Doge is being run like a tech bro frat house. Musk is throwing tantrums the second anyone holds him accountable, and we're here apparently deciding government staffing by a Twitter poll now.
Yeah, this is what happens when you let billionaires cosplay as government officials. Turns out running a country is a little harder than running a social media website into the ground.
Elon Musk loves to pretend that he's Tony Stark, but this whole situation proves he's really just a guy with too much money and way too much unchecked power, and if he wants to play government overlord, he's going to have to deal with the consequences.
And that's why this week, the Muskrats are our jackasses of the week.
Congrats, Elon. Maybe you can do a Twitter poll to see if you deserve this award.
So, all right, folks, that wraps up another episode of Jackass Politics. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, share, and tell your friends, because the more people that tune in, the harder it is for the bullshitters to keep getting away with this bullshit.
And look, we joke around a lot, but here's something serious. If you're pissed off about what we talked about today, like we are, don't just be mad in your group chat. Call your legislators.
Yeah, AOC just posted about this right now. The volume of calls to congressional offices is off the charts. And trust me, that kind of pressure works. These politicians love to pretend that they don't hear you, but when their phones won't stop ringing, they have to listen.
And that's exactly what we need. These people need to be bullied into doing their damn jobs. Call them, email them, show up to town halls, tell them you're watching, and if you keep letting Musk and his little fanboys play government cosplay without oversight, they're going to hear from you every single damn day until they do something.
And if you're thinking, my call doesn't really matter, that's exactly what they want you to think. Your call matters, your voice matters, and if enough people do it, they'll be forced to take action.
So, if you know who your representative is but can't reach them directly, the clerk of the House keeps a full list of all House members' phone numbers and addresses. And if you don't know where to start, call the U.S. House switchboard at 202-224-3121. They'll connect you to your rep's office, no excuses.
Make your call, send your email, do whatever you got to do. And if they still don't listen, we'll be right back here next week dragging them for it.
That's it for this episode. Like, subscribe, leave a review, and if you really want to help us out, share this with someone who needs to hear it.
And remember, if we don't raise hell, the wrong people will.
Later.
Later.